had just departed Samuk Champe, and
who's going
that
to introduce
morning-
us?
Right. Okay. Hello, I am Aman Parshre, and I have with me over here my co-host Aaron D'Souza, and we are Exposed T. And today we're gonna pick up where we left off from our previous episode, where we had been talking about our Guatemala story, and we had just departed Samuk Champe, the lagoon system where we were jumping in pools, stuff like that. And today we'll be talking about the part after that. So yes, we had left Samuk Champe on I believe it was the 5th of October. And we started off early in the morning because we wanted to see what happens, not leave the rest of the day to what might happen in terms of like roadblocks or protests or whatever of those kind. And we left a little early. We wanted to stop for breakfast on the way. So it was all well. We were driving for about an hour, 8:30ish. I think we stopped for breakfast at a quiet corner just before we got on the highway. There was a little turf field, football field, and we were chilling there for about an hour and a half or so. And that's when we left to go to our next destination. Ideally, it was to go to Antigua, and then eventually Guatemala City. So we were taking the west and then south kind of route, not the same one as we had taken when we were coming north. So yeah, and we had been. And after breakfast, we were driving for about maybe, I think, a couple hours, maybe 3 hours. It was really going well. We were so happy. There were no roadblocks. And then in the middle of nowhere, in the mountains, there was a roadblock. And we saw like a lineup of cars and vehicles. And we crossed that, went down a little slope after crossing all those vehicles. And I was just starting to about speed up in the car on the slope when suddenly we were stopped by a guy holding a machete. They threw a log of wood on the road just so that they could stop us. And I braked the car so hard. Oh my God. Everyone, we were all scared. The three of us. It was me, Aaron, and Bryony at the time. And we were like, oh shoot. And Aaron's like, yo, reverse. So I panicked. I stopped and reversed like so fast. It was the craziest thing ever. Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, and once that happened, we were terrified for our lives. And we realized that, this roadblock thing is probably not something which is taken to be lightly, because there's something more... something more going on in the lines of some kind of like political unrest.
Yeah.
And the locals were clearly pissed off, and they wanted to do something about it. So when we actually got stopped there, we had the chance to talk to someone there, and they briefed us on the situation quite on the surface level. Because we were, again, translating from Spanish to English. And we got to know that there was political unrest at the time, where in the form of the government not electing a new president. The current president was saying that this election which you have had right now, we're just going to throw it out of the window. The guy you have appointed or like voted for, we do not want him or her. I don't actually know who it was, but they didn't want them to be in power, and because of that, the locals felt cheated. So they started blockading every single major road across Guatemala. And
especially highways.
The thing with Guatemala is that all the roads are pretty rural, and the ones which are like the main highways, there's no alternate highway to get to that spot. You have to just follow this one highway to every major city in Guatemala, and that's how the locals were successful in the fact that they can just blockade these things, and foods, like food materials, all the resources which get to the main cities won't be getting there. That's how the locals are showing their power as like farmers, working class people, showing that if you can't, you basically can't function without us. So that's very prominent in Guatemala. Like if you just blockade, if we were going from Samukshampe to Guatemala City, and they blockaded the main highway, and there was no way for us to get through at all. Even as internationals, we had a flight to catch in the next 3 to 4 days, and we had no idea if we can even get through this in time. And so in this first blockade, we just stayed there because they clearly had machetes and were ready to like chop us up. But we decided to cooperate, and we had no choice. We had to cooperate. And we stayed there for a while, and there were like a lot of gas stations there, thankfully, which you could go to get coffee and food at that specific roadblock. As the story goes on, we'll tell you how that resource wasn't available.
And this whole time, I remember, so at every stop that we were at, we had one thing that was bothering this whole time. And we have live footage, kind of live footage or evidence that we had, the culprit was one of the two of us. So what had happened was, Aaron had bought a carton of milk to drink. Okay. Somewhere along the way, what happened was he probably left it in the car, or some of it probably leaked, and it was starting to smell. And you know, when milk smells and starts to go bad, oh my God, it can hurt you so bad. Right.
Yep.
And we have real footage of Aaron telling us about this disaster, this milk carton disaster. I remember Bryony was about to like kill you, dude. Like she was about to attack you. And it was
at that moment, I was not scared about the machetes. I was scared of Bryony.
Yeah, true.
And the thing is that the milk definitely contributed to the smell, but like us being there, us sleeping inside the car, our socks, dirt, food, all of these things just contributed to the smell. And I swear to God, I haven't smelled something worse. It was so bad, the smell. And we were like sleeping in it because we had no choice.
Yeah.
We were firstly we had limited resources. We couldn't like just go to the ATM and cash out. There were no ATMs because everything was rural. So finding ATMs was tough. And we were trying to ration our expenses and like food as well. Because let's say if we are at one blockade and we are traveling, we get past this blockade, which happened, by the way. We got to this blockade and we had to get to the next to a destination, but we were stopped like 4 or 5 times because there were 4 or 5 blockades. And let's say from A to B, at one point there might not be any kind of store or any kind of resources which we can just buy something and eat. So we were basically scared about eating things as well. It felt very,
I remember we had bought a couple of different kinds of breads. And we were like, okay, we're stopping here until 7 p.m. because that's when the roadblock's going to open. And we had like 4 breads left and a couple of Kit Kats maybe or something like that. And 2 juice boxes, stuff like that. But and like we felt like we're trying to like lighten out the situation, but it was very, very grave, like what we were in, because we were basically
we didn't have anywhere to go. There was no way we can get past the blockades. We were running out of money. We were running out of food resources, and we had no idea on the timeline on where we can actually get to the city. So we were scared. Actually scared. Like, what are we going to do? How we're going to miss our flight? We're going to have a lot of things. But at the same time, Guatemala is pretty beautiful. So we were enjoying the sights.
That is so true.
A lot of things. And there were people around us all the time. People were super sweet, super nice. They were in that situation as much as we were.
In contrast to what was actually happening, which was super cool.
Like the people at the blockades, the sweetest people you'll ever see. Like, they were understanding. Some of them were pretty rebellious. At one of these checkpoints, which we'll talk about later, we had a tough time with some people.
Yeah.
But the majority were super sweet. So that's one of the only reasons why we were actually able to get out of Guatemala. But yeah, as the story goes, we were the first blockade, and then we head down the road to Santa Cruz del Quiche. That's where we face this major blockade. Like no one's getting through. And even if you're getting through, it's like for 5-10 minutes they'll just allow it. And if you see the traffic, it's like spanning out to like 5 to 10 kilometers from the blockade itself.
Not 5 to 10 kilometers. That's, I think, an exaggeration, but it was.
Exaggeration, but it felt like that.
2.5-3 kilometers, yeah.
Easily. And like, there was so many cars, and like, it was very difficult because let's say if a blockade's open for like 5-10 minutes, like an amount of cars can go, not the whole time, like probably like 5% of the cars in line. So we had to get really lucky and very ahead in the blockade. So whenever we got past a blockade, we were just
sprinting,
zooming.
Yeah.
We were like putting the pedal to the metal and just going as fast as possible to the next blockade. And basically at this major blockade at Santa Cruz del Quiche, we decided that it's pretty late at night and this blockade is not opening until like the next morning. So we decided to stay in this hotel. So it was a pretty good hotel. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent hotel. It was, I forgot what it's called. Maybe we should rate them on Google or something, but yeah. It was a pretty sweet hotel, but that was actually the next day. You remember we stayed that night in the car when we realized, okay, that was the next night. So basically, on the day that we departed, we had stayed the night in the car in Santa Cruz del Quiche because you remember we were sitting on that slope and it wasn't really opening up at all.
Oh yes. So basically,
and it was raining. It was getting cold. We couldn't open our windows, but we had to because the milk was smelling so bad. We were so confused at that time. And then the next morning, it opened. We went to the next open. Like we crossed the first that roadblock the next morning, and then we reached the next roadblock. Over there, I remember we had spent some time. I took a walk just to see if we could negotiate our way because, we are foreigners, we are tourists. Maybe I could try speaking to them. Maybe they'd let us go. And so when I had gone to speak and negotiate with them, there were these two people. They were able to speak English, so that was amazing. They came up to me and they said, okay, I understand you're a foreigner and all of that, you're tourists. Maybe we'll try to help you. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. And she helped us. So we followed them on their bike and she took us to...
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this. So basically, these two people, they used us as bait. Essentially, because they wanted to also see that so basically these people were Guatemalan locals and one of the main protesters at these blockades, and the woman actually we were talking to, she suggested the idea that we will let you go through this blockade, but at the next blockade we will follow you And
was
basically the rumor was that, it was genius. But the rumor was that at these blockades, some of the blockades, the people were kind of like exploiting the people crossing through, and they wanted to see if they did something to us. So we were essentially bait. And we went to the second the blockade after that, and thankfully nothing happened. But they weren't like the girl who was helping us. She wasn't able to help us through that blockade.
Yeah, so we had to get back.
So we had to get back, and we went to a different blockade on a different road, and that was blocked as well. But at the same time, we hear that the blockade we went to before that was opening up. And we had to drive back up there, and
by that time
suddenly
it was closed. Yeah. So eventually, that whole day was completely wasted. We were just touching bases with different blockades. Hi, will you guys let us through? And none of it actually helped. So then that's the night that we actually stayed. We decided, okay, fuck this. Oh, I can't abuse it. But anyway,
fine.
This. Yeah, I can cut it out. Yeah.
It's exposed tea. It's fine. It's exposed
tea. Yeah. But it's not explicit tea.
No, it's explosive. No, it's not explosive.
But anyway, so finally we decided that, we cannot deal with the smell in the car. We'll just find a hotel. And we stayed in the hotel that night at Santa Cruz del Quiche. Really nice place. Beautiful. They had a nice coffee collection, great food.
Yeah, we bought a lot of coffee from there.
Super comfortable. Yeah, it was a great stay. I'm glad we took that night to kind of rest, de-stress, if that's the word.
Yep.
And reconvene the next morning after breakfast to go find the next roadblock. So basically, the next roadblock was just outside Quiche at Chiche, but to get out of Quiche, I remember we had stopped at that. There was a circle where it was an intersection, and we went there. We showed our passports and stuff. I remember we're like, oh, we're not from here. We have to go. And so luckily they let us through, and then we reached the next one, which is Chiche, which is not very far, maybe about a 15-minute ride in the car. That's where we spent the longest of our time in a roadblock. And that's the night where I remember it was during the day. I remember there was this guy selling pineapples and stuff like that for people who had stopped. We met an amazing there was a caravan in front of us who with foreigners, so I spoke to them, stuff like that. Bryony was chilling with us. Of course, she had no choice. She was so
she had no choice.
With the milk smell. She enjoyed the pineapple though.
We all were at one point. Yeah. We kind of lost hope as well. We were basically international hostages. I came up with this term because we are internationals in foreign soil, and we are being held captive against our will. So that means we are international hostages, and our respective governments. For Bryony, it's England. For us, it's India, and we need to like contact the embassies. Actually, we did contact the embassies.
Yeah, we tried to contact the embassies. You remember? Yeah.
Yep, we called the embassies, and Bryony's embassy essentially said, "We can't help you," giving no information, saying that we don't have any jurisdiction there, so we can't help you at all. But best of luck coming out of there. And for us, I called in the Indian embassy in Guatemala, and they gave us like a map system where we could see like where are all the blockades. That actually helped a ton.
That helped,
yeah, and we could avoid certain roads, and but again, the government could not do anything because they can't just come like in a chopper and like pick you guys up. They have to follow protocol, and we get that. We didn't get it at the time, but we get it now. And so basically, after all of that mess, we got through Chiche, and we we drove because we got through this massive blockade in Chiche. We drove in the night with heavy rains.
Yeah. And that was the last night before we had to leave. That was the second last night, right? No, it was the last night. It was the last night. No,
it was the second last. It was second last because like we reached Guatemala City a night before we were supposed to fly. And
exactly. So it was the last night technically. Yeah, it was the last night before we had to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. We like if that day we did not get like lucky with the checkposts, we would not have got.
I swear.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot this, but like at one of the checkposts, which I mentioned before, that the situation got a bit more hostile than we would have liked. We were basically through all the checkposts, we were getting there and we were negotiating with the people there, saying that we're foreigners, we need to get to the airport because we don't want to miss our flight. And most of them were nice about it. And we got to this one blockade and they understood and let us through like a few meters. And instantly someone came and said that who let these guys come in here?
Yeah.
And people just stood in front of our car with like sticks, machetes. I saw I don't know, I saw something, but I saw a gun on someone, so it kind of got very scary. And it was so crowded because like when someone when they stopped us, all of the protesters just came and surrounded
the car.
Yeah, and everywhere we just saw people, and we were super, super scared at that point. We were like, okay, we're dead. They can just pick us up and like hold us actually hostage. And somehow they just told us to go to the side. It de-escalated. But for like 15-20 minutes, everyone was crowding us. It was super scary. And they took us to the side, told us to stay there. You're not allowed to leave here. And we said, okay, cool, we can't do anything. So we got out of the car, tried to find a gas station. There was a gas station there. We filled up on supplies and we waited for like an hour or so. And suddenly they opened up the blockade and we were able to get through that. But that was one of the scariest point in the whole trip, because we were surrounded by people with sticks and everything. They were saying like everything, like the only thing they were saying in a very strong and scary voice was like Spanish, and we barely understood it. Aman could understand some of it. Mm-hmm. But we got through all those blockades safely, and we drove through the rain. Firstly, driving in the rain when it's in the night at like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. in the night, it's the scariest thing ever. And especially if you're driving through a hilly region, because you don't know when like a rock slide can happen. Like,
and it started to, and we could already see like there were rocks on the road. A car in front of us actually hit one. We hit one. I remember there was a bump and I don't know what it was, but I didn't see it, man. Like I think it was a rock that we went over and hit the bottom.
I'll tell you why. Because let's say you're driving in the rain in the middle of the night. What happens? It's cool inside. It's hot. It's cool outside and it's hot inside. There's a lot of fog on the screen. Yeah. So you have essentially rain, night sky, and fog. There was basically 20% visibility for the driver, and somehow we got through there.
I remember the way I was driving. I was putting my head out of the window and then actually driving. I remember my head got wet, dude. Like I swear, that was my whole left side got wet.
And it's scary because you can't slow down.
Yeah,
you can't slow down because there's cars behind you. You can't go too fast because what if the car ahead of you starts slowing down? So it actually trained us to become better drivers. Mm-hmm. So that's good. I always look at positives and everything.
For sure, man. Yeah,
We
but
got
eventually,
through all of that.
got through all of that, reached Guatemala City, and we
Yeah.
finally, like, we were gonna stay at a hostel again, but then we said, no, not anymore. We want a comfortable night, so we looked for
Yep.
like a Holiday Inn. We stayed at the Holiday
Yep.
Inn, had some good food. We went to we put all our stuff there. Took a walk and like
Yeah.
had some tacos or whatever it was, and in a
Yeah.
little under the tent kind of street food kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
came
know, it's
back.
great.
People invited us to like come into the clubs and stuff like that while we were just
Clubs
walking
and stuff,
around,
yeah.
because that was like there was a
Saturday.
pretty sweet spot where you'll find decent
Yeah.
people, crowds, and all of that. But eventually, yeah, we had dinner. We got back to the hotel, spent the night, and next morning, the next day we had our flights. So we had like a beautiful, like such an enjoyable breakfast finally at the Holiday Inn at the buffet. I was like, oh, finally getting home in after all of the pain, discomfort is so necessary. Like,
Yeah.
it was the best comforting part towards the end, after all the pain we had been through, and I'm glad we did that, man. Like, honestly,
For sure. It was a hell of an experience, very scarring in many ways, but at the same time you kind of take away the fact that you can always find positivity in a very negative situation. Like the positivity there was the food. The food was great. The people were great. The views were amazing.
the stranger we met was really nice. I'm surprised she even rode with us. Like, bro, like we had two Indian boys just like roaming around.
But the thing is that
I'm so surprised she joined us.
Yeah, but she had no choice either, because if she hadn't hitched a ride with us in Samuk Champe, she wouldn't have been able to get out of there, because she didn't have any means of transportation. She had a bus which she had to catch, but the bus got cancelled because of all the roadblocks.
Yeah.
So she had no way of getting out of Samuk Champe. The only way was to come with us, and she could make it to her flight as well. And actually, she missed her flight, right? She was supposed to fly out before, and then she missed her flight, and she had to rebook her flight.
That's right.
Yeah, she actually missed her flight. Thankfully we did not miss our flight, and we came out of Guatemala pretty safely.
Yeah,
and we also got to know.
For you. Oh, go on.
We also got to know that our flights that day were one of the last flights coming out of Guatemala, because the airport was closed that same day.
That's true. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that was the last day.
Yeah. So basically, if we didn't make our flight, then we would have stayed there for like, let's say 2-3 weeks, because that's the amount of time Guatemala airport was closed.
Yeah. Which would
have been horrible.
I have an interesting question for you. What would you say was the best thing about Guatemala that you experienced?
The best thing about Guatemala, honestly,
was it the people you met, the crazy stuff you did? What was it?
I feel like it was more about you and me. We were there with each other the whole time. We could experience the things together that I hadn't seen you for a long time. So it was a great experience just to be there with you and just chill and like relax for most of it, and then have the stressful times as well. But it's one of those trips which you'll always remember. I'll say that you really like you really experienced the culture. We experienced the locals' point of view of a lot of things as well, like the political unrest, their culture. We got to hang out with so many people, and these kind of backpacking trips where you just do like a road trip with a friend can really be very eventful, more than actually any kind of touristy trip you do, because you're just tied down to In the end of the day, you're just tied down to like a bus with like an instructor or someone to telling you like, oh yeah, you go here for 2 hours, go here for like 1.5 hours, do this, do that. We at this, but in this trip which we did, we got to decide everything, and that was the best thing. Also, we got to really experience Guatemala in its truest essence. Like we got to see the different seasons as well. We saw rain, we saw extreme sun, we experienced extreme cold as well, because I remember we were driving through this hill station which was very cold and a lot of fog everywhere, and we drank this hottest piece of like cup of hot chocolate and like coffee. Oh my god, it was amazing. It was honestly amazing. I'm a big hot chocolate aficionado. Aman loves his tea and coffee at times. But yeah, that was Guatemala, guys. And we can very comfortably and confidently say that if anyone needs to go to Guatemala, they can ask us. We can tell you everything about it. We can tell you the roads which you should be taking. We can tell you the places to go. We can tell the places to eat. Like and that's how you really travel to this place, because you basically know everything about the place, and it makes it really tells you that road trips or like backpacking trips are so much more better than these kind of like touristy trips which you take.
And by the way,
Yeah.
at the 30-minute mark, my camera stopped recording, so I lost 4 minutes. But I'll probably convert this to audio or something and leave it as audio itself.
Oh, that's fine. I have mine's on, so that's fine.
We can always use yours. Yeah.
That's a great place to actually end this podcast today. Not end the podcast. We just started the podcast. Don't do that.
End this episode. That's right.
Yes. We are here to end the episode.
Clocking out.
Yes. Signing out. Good night. Take care. And see you in the next episode.
Yes, sir. Enjoy. Bye-bye.